Welcome to the January 8th, 2025 meeting of the Goffstown Economic Development Council. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a quorum, which is great. I think I'll start with a roll call with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Oscar Revello, alternate.
Chris Barrett, alternate.
Chet Bowen, Chair.
Dick Bruno, vice chair.
Charlie Birchmeyer, member.
Kelly Boyer, Select Board Rep.
Thank you very much. Start with the approval of minutes from October 2nd, 2024. If anyone's read them and wants to make a motion. Obviously, you were here.
I'll make the motion to accept.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Dick, seconded by Charlie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you very much. So tonight we will start with our guest, Tina Lawton from the Goffstown Main Street Program. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
I have some goodies here from Pumpkin Regatta that's been floating around in my car since November. We were going to meet in November and in December. So it might be a little wrinkled, but there's some shirts and bags you guys can pick through if you want. And these have been floating around too. This is just an update on that I put out for the first half of the year. I haven't finished the one for the second half of the year, but I'll just give you an update on what we've been up to.
There you go, sir.
We had a couple smaller events early in the year. Yoga on the Common,
I'll
Ice
take
Cream
one.
Social, Pony Story Time was a new thing for us to do. It was a partnership with an equestrian outreach program. Uncommon Art on the Common on August 3rd. It was their 15th year anniversary. Pumpkin Regatta, of course, and we worked with some new businesses from AEO Design, I think it is, Megan from the new boutique up the street where the old MAO, where the old pharmacy used to be, and there's another new business that came in late in the year that I need to connect with. I reached out, haven't heard back. But that's almost next door to MAO Design. And then we had a SCORE workshop for business owners in September. Unfortunately, it occurred on the same day as voting, so the turnout wasn't that great. But the few that we did have come in there, we had a few smaller business owners. They got some really good information about, marketing and promoting your products on social media, so that was good. And then we had it was held at Night Owl, and Night Owl is phenomenal at reaching out to her base and using social media, so she added a lot of value to that. We'll be doing another one in the spring. We are looking to give some grant funding to a business or two. We do this every year. We have what is referred to as the facade grant. So anything to do with the outside of your storefront or the property owner's property. Most of the time it turns into helping with signs or vinyl signage on a window or something. So if you know of anybody in our little district, which is from Putnam's to Sully's, and if you know anybody in that area that's coming in or looking to do some things, I had a conversation with Jill at Evolve, who had a Reiki, I never say it right, Reiki services she provided in her home, and she switched and moved into a space on 7 Main Street. So I worked with her to maybe do some, because she just has sort of like, she's on the side of the building where there's just a door. That's it, it's just a door. So we talked about doing some some planters and flags and things that sort of make it a little more inviting. But we didn't close on that, so I'll continue to work with her as well. And then our art team, which is always very busy and always does a lot of work throughout the year. They're the ones that really put on the Uncommon Art in the Common. They do the art show-off that starts with Pumpkin Regatta and runs through December, hangs in the halls here. And then they do Art on the Wall, so they did that twice, in July and November, where they have local artists, about 40 pieces of art that's distributed out to about 9 businesses anywhere, you know, between here and Bernardville. And they display their art for several weeks, and some of the art might sell, but it's a good, good opportunity for the artists to get some exposure. And so that's what's really, we worked with the new housing development, Hadley, residents at Hadley Falls. I had a couple of businesses that wanted to do a promotional piece. So we did something for Small Business Saturday. And there were 5 businesses that participated, and we worked with the rental manager there, sent out a digital coupon promotional piece, and if they came in on the day on Small Business Saturday, they could get, whatever discount was offering. It was Finder Seekers, Lost Page Found, White Birch Massage, MAO Design, and then the Cauldron Brew up the street too. So that was fun to do. We hope to do a little bit more. They were really great to work with, and they have an electronic database, so they're really easy to, it'll be really easy for us to reach out and promote some of the businesses within that residence. And other than that, we're getting ready, resetting for 2025, and we'll be working on the golf tournament soon, and have all the normal things. We were supposed to have a New Year's Eve event, but which was going to be a real stretch for us since we do Pumpkin Regatta and then Friday Night Under Lights. And so I had a volunteer who had really great ideas and a good, team to help her, but that team sort of, reduced dramatically, and it was just too much for us to do, and to do it in a quality way. So we're going to give it another shot this year, but it was just an opportunity to have a family-friendly sort of way to bring in the new year. Everybody can be on their way home by 9 o'clock, and then if anybody wants to send the kiddos off to the sitter and go out from there, that's fine, but it's really was designed to be a family-friendly opportunity to, to ring in the new year. So we'll give that another shot this year. So it was a busy year. We continue to be a small working volunteer board, but we're continue to reach out and expand, because we're really trying to maintain our space at 4 Main Street. We feel like having a presence on Main Street is important. But we've been running without a director for now 3 years, trying to save costs in that area. And we do really well in our events with sponsorship support, but we're just really going to have to dig a little deeper, because we don't want to, we have the reserve funds that we want to save that for, special things that we do in the town. So we're really trying not to tap into that too much more, but so that'll be a new venture for us, to try and do a little fundraising and do maybe some search for some grant funding that might help offset the cost of that space, which isn't terrible in comparison to what some of the others pay, but $12,000 a year is a lot of money, so that'll be our challenge for 2025.
Great. Thank you.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, could you bring us up to date as far as the Pumpkin Regatta, and how did that come out financially? Was it a success? Because I know it's the biggest event.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we did really well. We have really honed in on the sponsorship and trying to do that well, to outreach, secure sponsorships to help offset the cost. and then to have some left over to help cover some of the operational costs, but also to, put into the fund to help, support or supply some of the funding for these facade grants. So we did really well. We had to tap into our reserves a little bit this year, but not nearly as much as we've had in the last couple of years. So we have yet to have any, net proceeds to move over to the next year, but we'll continue to work hard on that. It's hard when you're all volunteers and you all have your, well, why am I telling you this? So.
But you do a great job organizing them, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been great
A lot of
having
compliments on the Pumpkin Fest, I hear so many people.
Yeah. So it's been great having the street shut down, and we were so happy to have the help with the funding to offset some of that cost, this year. So it really just puts my mind at ease because I have, we just saw recently a couple things that happened. So it's just, when you have that many people around in a small area, it's very nerve-wracking. So it's very comforting to have that street shut down. It's worth every penny.
What does it cost if that's allowed to ask?
The invoice this year was, I think it was almost 6,000. And it's all police and, coverage of just, and they really worked hard this year to have volunteers do the patrolling of the traffic so that the police could be on, the officers could be on the street, keeping a close eye on things rather than just, doing the mindful, this of just go this way, just turn this way, stop, hold, that wasn't a good use of them. So we felt good having them wandering more and looking out for things.
A question about the facade grant. If somebody wants to take advantage of that, and they just reach out to you directly, great. If somebody needed to remove an old sign because they wanted to upgrade the facade, would that be included in that grant? Is there any reason that would be excluded from the grant funding?
No, we do a lot of signage with it. It's it's not as fun to do, but certainly it is a it's a very helpful thing for especially a new business owner. But certainly upgrading the sign would fit right in. It's just a simple application process, and it's not a ton of money, but it's a little bit to help. And so we do up to $750, up to 50, half off, up to $750 dollars to help with a particular project.
Great. Thank you.
That Vixter sign?
Yeah.
That's apparently structurally.
So do most of the businesses on Main Street that are part of Main Street know about this? Do you get that information out to them?
Well, it's no, a lot of them don't. It's really hard to find a way that's good to communicate with the businesses. Email is our typically our way to reach out, but they're busy. And they're not always responsive, and it's so we try to put the word out there, to touch base with people face to face if we know a new business owner's coming in. But we're going to have another meet and greet for the business owners in February. We're going to have one, and it's an opportunity for us to talk a little bit more about that process and what that is, and to hand out some applications. And we are going to put it on the website so it's a little more accessible to people who might just be perusing the website. So yeah.
Any other questions? Is there anything else you want to update us on?
No?
Well, thank you so much. I
Let
appreciate
me know
it.
if we could be helpful with anything.
Yeah, we'd like to obviously have you come back again at some point when we have a project, and just have a conversation about that, see what we can do. That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Stay warm out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, you too.
My goodness. You've been standing in the lobby. I was like, this is not great.
Yeah, it's really cool.
In an igloo. Okay, so moving on to new business code of conduct. I feel like that's been on there for a while, but we never have gotten to it, or did we?
So you received copies
Yep.
of it, and I just wanted to make you aware that it has changed,
Okay,
and the changes were highlighted.
Yep.
And, you know, it's just a matter of informational purposes only.
okay. Okay, thank you. And it looks like we have old business vacant properties.
Yes, so I started to copy the pages, but it's an Excel spreadsheet, so it would be really hard for you to follow it unless you actually had it on your screen. So I think it's better that I just email it to you guys. It's not current, it's a few months old now, but I did get it from the assessor, so I assume he does keep it current, and I can actually ask him for a new copy. But what it shows is all of the vacant properties or buildings or just vacant, nothing on there. So some of those properties potentially could have new construction. Some of them, you know, they may be too small or, you know, just not appropriate for building anything. But there is a list, and then what we can do from that is you could look at, there's the addresses and there's the map and lots. And so we could hone in on certain properties and get like the information, who owns it, how large is it, what zone it's in, so that if we wanted to pursue something and we thought, oh, this is a good piece of property for development, we could actually like start making some contacts on that.
Joanne, that is the attachment, today I got an attachment
It
with
was
that.
attached to, oh, that's right, it was attached today.
Okay, so that is
And I
the
tried
list
to
you're
copy,
talking
but
about.
it's too long.
Yeah, no, there's a
We
lot
could-
of information,
And
it's all
we
good
could hide,
information.
I think if I send you another one, what I'll do is I'll hide some of the columns, because some of it, you know, it doesn't really pertain. And then it'll be a little bit shorter and more workable. But he keeps track of all of those things, so it's handy information.
And do we still have, I know that we use Facebook, for a while we were updating that exact thing, the vacant lot on the EDC portion and allowing for inquiries. Is that still live and looking good? I don't know, I didn't check it today.
The Facebook page hasn't had much activity lately.
Sure.
It's only because there hasn't been, I mean, it's winter and there hasn't been a whole lot going on. But behind the scenes, there are a lot of applications coming through to the planning board for spring construction. One of the businesses that will be coming to the planning board soon is an Aroma Joe's.
Mhm.
And they'll be going on Mass Road in Pinardville. In the, what was it, it was like a fuel company next to Jacques Flowers. And
Okay.
they were using that parking this summer for their not flea market, but farmer's market. So I'm going to give them a call and just say you might want to find some other parking, because most likely that building will be under construction
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
And then we have tomorrow night, actually, we have a planning board meeting, and there's a company coming in that's currently in Ware, and it's a diesel vehicle sales and service.
Mhm.
And they're going in one of the lots down on Tower Lane. Do you know where that is?
Mhm.
Behind the gas station, kind of down in the hill, or down the hill. And it's a pretty large company. They have different locations. It's owned by a husband and wife, and they are looking to move out of Ware and put their central business down on Tower Lane. And they're also looking to purchase the lot next to them for future expansion. Trying to think what else we have. We're like really busy right now with all sorts of things going on. There's lots of people going to the zoning board for variances or trying to get variances for accessory dwelling units detached, which we don't currently allow. And they're also looking to be allowed to do 1,000 square feet versus 800 square feet, which is what the maximum is currently. But some are being approved and some aren't, depending on, lots of different issues, but each one is looked at individually. I tried to get the planning board to increase the square footage to 1,000 feet, but they didn't want to try to do it. It has to go before the voters. And they didn't want to try and do it this year because the state has on their docket, or it's not actually public yet, but they're working on the bills, and they have over 100 bills this year concerning housing. So we hear that there's a lot in there about ADUs, so we're waiting to see what the state's going to do with that subject.
Makes sense.
ADU is a nice way of allowing for housing in your neighborhood without it being a distraction or, having a great impact on the neighborhood itself or your next door neighbors, because it has to, there's lots of requirements it has to follow, and one of them is it has to match the house itself. It can't just be like this sort of, I was going to say sore thumb. What was the saying?
Eyesore?
Eyesore. This eyesore sitting there, standing out that it, be painted some crazy color or something. So that seems to be a big thing now with people. Either there's lots of folks in town who have moved out of their home and move into the ADU as they age, and then their family moves into the home, or the opposite, where maybe there's a young person in the family who can't afford housing, so they move into the ADU. So there's different ways that it's helping people. I can't think, I should have brought a list with me, but it's busy. Oh, you probably have noticed that the wooden structures under construction now next to the car wash on Mass Road. I just happened to see that today. That's
Hawks, right?
Trailer business, so he's finally getting his building up, and he'll be able to move everything down from where he has it now by the high school area on Mass Road, near Wallace Road, Mass Road.
Is there another buildable lot on the other side of him, further down? Is that a buildable lot? Do you know? It looks like there's an open area, or does he own all of it? Or is that all for him?
They're trying to subdivide. There was a company that came in, it was some kind of retail company, they wouldn't say what they were. And they wanted to put a retail operation. They wanted to subdivide an acre off the corner. So if you're driving in to the car wash, or driving into the car wash, I think.
Yeah, there's only one entrance.
Yeah, and you look to the right, it would be that a little 1 acre parcel here. They ran into a problem with the state because that's a state road right there, and the state wanted them, because it was a busy retail, the state wanted them to install a turning lane, and they said it was too expensive, so they pulled out.
Yep. Yep.
There's another company that purchased a lot recently down on the bottom of Tower Lane. They're from Texas, but we just know that they purchased it. We have no idea what their plans are. They haven't contacted us, and we asked the original seller if he knew anything, and he said no, it was just a real estate transaction. He never met them.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Do you want to update us all on the just the pedestrian bridge and the meeting?
Yeah. We have been meeting, the pedestrian bridge committee is meeting. Matter of fact, we had a meeting last night, and we are applying for a TAP grant, and we're trying to get ourselves on the list now. Next week, the select board will get the package, and that's so that hopefully they can endorse that. We've got endorsements from most of the committees in town and some of the departments to say that it would enhance the town, both for economic purposes as well as safety purposes. I think it would be a great enhancement to the town, and we'll finish what is the rail trail. It's going to be a natural finish to the rail trail. Now, this grant, we won't see any success to that one. David Pierce has been the one that's been behind it. And he's pretty much the guy that's built the rail trail, if you didn't know that, but, and he's done a wonderful job as far as preparing the grant. So once it's presented, the timeline seems to be that they may award the grants come May. And if we are successful, we have 5 years in order to raise funds, because again, it's an 80-20 split. So we would be certainly responsible for raising the 20%. The project, if you didn't know, it's about $1.2 million is what we're projecting, and so that means we'd be probably have to raise about $250,000 from outside funds. But again, as we move it along, hopefully the select board will put their stamp on it. Next week, I think you're going to be getting it, and then it will be moved along. We'll see what happens. This is a state grant, but of course it's federal funds that feed it too.
Thank you.
I forgot one thing. The apartment complex on Bog Road that was kind of ran into financial difficulties. The company of Anagnost, Dick Anagnost Company, purchased the property, and he is finishing the buildings, finishing the project, and they should be available for rent as of end of January, early February. There's 2 phases to it, so phase 1 will be finished first, and phase 2 will be following maybe a month later.
Are those condos or apartments?
No, they're apartments,
Yeah.
and the way it was explained to me, they go by HUD guidelines, but they're not rent related, although they do look at your salary and your finances and give you a number. There was a long waiting list. I think there were 400 people at one time, and there was, for some reason, halfway through, they decided they were going to do a new lottery all over again. So the people who were high up on the list kind of got bumped down. But I don't know how many people ended up, because what they did was they called the people and said, you've been selected, do you still want to go forward with this? So that takes time to go, first the people were first qualified, and then they contacted them. So I don't really know how many people they've already approved and how many people agreed, but at least it's moving along, and it will be
So it
finished.
is income sensitive then, that's how they...
Yes, there are
they will-
apartments
So
that...
there are some considered workforce
and it's
housing?
not
that
the
are-
entire project, but a portion of it.
Yeah.
When were those supposed to be ready at the beginning of December?
Yes, some were supposed to be
last
ready in November. The former company had a contract, and it had to do with their financing, and they were supposed to finish phase 1 the beginning of November, and then phase 2 the beginning of December. But I did ask Dick if he had to follow those dates, and he said that was no longer part of the agreement when he took over. And he's going to be managing it as well. He owns the apartments, when you're traveling in Pinardville over Kelly Street, and before you get over the Kelly Street Bridge on the left, they're kind of set back. He owns that project, and he owns the one behind the old Shaw's building. So he already has, now he has 3 in town. And he's
got a lot in Manchester, for sure.
yeah, he's got a ton,
Yeah, he's been...
half of his portfolio is affordable housing, so I've worked with him a lot in Hooksett, and he's a difficult sometimes, but he's a great guy.
And how many locally does he have under HUD guidelines, do you know?
From local people,
Like
like
in this area, like how many buildings
I
that he
don't-
owns are HUD guidelines, do you know?
in town
Yeah.
here, they all are.
Okay.
Yeah, the 3 of them are. So, he also took over I don't know if he still owns it, but the Mount St. Mary's building in Hooksett, that great giant big building up on the hill, when that was still owned by the college, it was at New Hampshire College at the time, he took that over and renovated the whole thing, and I don't know if that's still under his ownership or not, but that was a big, massive project.
Thank you. Anything else? I just have one last thing to ask, and other than that, anything else that anyone wants to bring up? Okay, I'm not sure if any of you have read the annual report before. It's short and sweet, but is there anything that anyone on this council would like me to specifically put in there? We basically go through people that are on the committee, those that have joined since, and just an update on what we did.
I can go through the minutes
Mhm.
or even the agendas
Yep.
from the past year and just give you like the headings of some of the things that the board talked
Sure.
about.
Yep.
Okay.
And our goals, we talked about goals, perhaps changing those goals at
Yes.
some point.
Yep.
Because I think we had the discussion, that's why Joanne prepared that list for us. And I think that was the discussion centered around what was available, open land that could be, put some commercial properties into it. So I think that's, should be prominent as far as our goals. That's my opinion, and be able to advocate for those properties and work with some of the property owners if we can, to let them know what their intent is and how we can help. Because again, everybody's looking for tax relief, and I think we can contribute to that if we really work on some of those vacant properties.
Right. The Cauldron store is going out as of the end of the month. And there is someone already, she emailed me today, who's interested. So
from-
things are being filled quickly. I
Yep.
think what we need more of is the new construction and
Right.
larger companies.
That's what I think we need to look at. Maybe we talk about next meeting. Is the word development is in our name, and so I do certainly support what we could do for current businesses. But we've attempted to go to Pinardville numerous times and hold gatherings of businesses. We even went to Mountain Base Brewery, did our best. I know you really tried, we tried, and no one showed. If they're healthy, they're not really looking for a lot. So I think looking at the development portion of what we do, to your point, vacant lots, what can we do to make things site ready? Do we need to talk to zoning about potentially looking at what would it take to create more commercial zoning? Gas, sewer, all those things. I know these are gigantic projects, but just slowly we can do this, because this is the only council, Kelly, you're more familiar than I am with the infrastructure, but this is the only council, I believe, that its only real purpose is to develop businesses, provide tax relief, and we actually influence that, whether it's the school or the town, trying to provide that tax relief. So I do think a focus on development, whether we succeed or not, is beside the point, but the focus on development, I think, is something to look at for next year. I don't know if that's something I put in the annual report, if that's our focus for next year. I don't know that we do that until the year after that we did focus on it, but if it's appropriate, I can certainly put that in there.
Perhaps can explain it as a new goal, or
Yeah, absolutely.
future goals
Yeah.
would include that.
I wonder if it might be a good idea to meet with a few commercial realtors to find out, what people are looking for and like why they don't come here. And I think the biggest issue is the infrastructure.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's definitely a hardship for us.
Yeah, it's very clearly, in my opinion, from what we've heard from people that have thought about coming here, is the infrastructure, the lack of any site-ready, pads, for a better word. And then certainly the resistance or flat-out denial of gas and sewer expansion are all
Yeah.
certainly contributing to someone not wanting to come here. But I also think there's the very minimal zoning for commercial.
There is,
That is also
yeah.
difficult. So these are things we can discuss and focus on, I think, going forward. Again, whether we succeed or not are two different things, but
Right.
it's good to have the focus.
There's a company in Pinardville, he came in here I think it was last year, at the beginning of the year, and he was talking about, he has some kind of a industrial type business, and he makes things, and he was talking about how he's off, what's the name of that street? Daniel
Daniel
Plummer.
Plummer.
And
Yep.
he's, surrounded by other buildings. And
Yep.
he wants to expand,
Mhm.
but he really has no place to expand to.
Right.
So I think he would even move if he could find, a good place. And Daniel Plummer Road is actually probably the best place for that type of business because you could hop right onto 114
Right.
and get to the airport or wherever. It wouldn't be a bad idea to talk with him again and
You wanna
find
invite
out,
him
like,
back?
how can, yeah, sure, how can we do anything for you?
And do we have, speaking of the next agenda, do we have Cole? I believe he was the
Cole
next person.
said he would come, so I'll give him a call.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else?
I think it's good that you guys are talking about this, but I'm still gonna really strongly encourage you all to seek out other economic development committees in areas of communities that you'd like to emulate, because I think that might provide some of the direction that you guys are looking for. And then just on the minutes from the October 2nd meeting, you guys had some old business on here that I think you could potentially revisit those items. And I'd really like to see you guys set a date for coming up with goals or ideas or work. I'm gonna keep going back on that because it's, we're 39 minutes into our meeting and I'm feeling like it's just Joanne giving us updates and I want to see y'all do something that's,
An action
productive.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. If we're going to be very blunt and frank, we have a lot of incredibly talented people and have for years on this council that for some reason, even if we bring in a consultant or whatever, there doesn't seem to be a lot of time in between. So we discuss and then there's no action. So I think hopefully when we talk to Cole and some of these people that we're going to bring in, we can ask them, what are some actionable items that can be done within a reasonable amount of time for people who are wildly successful outside of doing this volunteer work that struggle with finding the time. Because I agree with you, we need to have some action. Let's create an action plan, go with it. It's one thing to say we need to talk to natural gas and sewer, and another to not go to the sewer committee and ask them what it looks like and how that could happen, or zoning and ask those questions. So I agree with you. Maybe if we can, I do a lot of project management at work and it works well, but I'm the boss there. It's very different than being a chair of a committee, but I can at least try to implement, can I ask, Charlie, would you mind doing this? I can start to do that if people are open to that, and then see how that works, at least to give us a little bit of homework in between that is actionable. Does that make sense? Is that kind of what you're getting at? It sounds like it.
Kind of, yeah. I think there's so much potential in here for you guys, and I think, I mentioned the structure before that I sort of voluntold or convinced the library to do, because they have a very similar setup. They meet once a month and nobody has time to do this kind of stuff all the time. So they set up their structure so that they have a business meeting and then a working meeting where they actually try to tackle some of this stuff. And I don't know, maybe that's a solution for you all. If there's things you want to do but can't find time, why don't we just build in the time to do those things? I still am really just, I want you guys to tell me what the plan is, so that I can go back to the select board and say this is a really important committee that's doing some good work when I give them my annual update from EDC. And yeah, let's go. Come on, you guys.
I hear you.
Well, I do like the idea of seeing other towns as to what they've done with their economic development committees. I think you had some.
Hooksett is pretty active right
Yeah,
now, but they had a
and
development.
I wouldn't mind going to a meeting to be, if it's the ability to go to a meeting, if it's public.
They were looking to put in some work to do some development at exit 11, but to also bring, I think it was sewer or water, down to exit 10. No, it was sewer, down to exit 10. All of those big box stores down at exit 10 are all on septic systems.
Are they really?
Oh, wow.
I didn't know
And
that. Wow.
like lots of failures that are going
Wow.
on down there. So
Yeah.
that was one of the goals for years and years. And so this developer came in and he purchased land at exit 11 for future development. And he said, you know, I'll do such and such if the town pays for the infrastructure. And so the town council bought into it at some point and they went forward. I forget how they funded it. They either took out a bond or they just put the amount of money on the warrant. I'd have to, my mind is fuzzy from that, but they got it passed and it's plugging along and the Economic Development Council is helping them, so.
Joanne, is there currently a connection between the planning board and then the sewer enterprise and the whichever water precinct? Or is planning reaching out to those entities when there isn't?
No, so the only thing they do is when a project comes in for planning board approval, they send it to those precincts. Like we send it to the sewer, we send it to whatever water commission it might be. And just for review and comment. So sewer might say, you know, oh, they need to do X, Y, Z, and Manchester Water just recently said they're putting a building over our line, and you know, something like, you know, they need to correct that. So those are the kinds of comments that we get. There's no saying like, okay, this project would be better off with both utilities. And because the sewer commission, from what I've seen over the last lots of years, they don't invest per se in expansion. They invest in improving the lines, but they leave it up to the developers when they come in with a new project to expand it. So there's no plan that they have to, there might be a plan as to where they should expand, but there's no plan for actually doing it. Because they're using user funds, not taxpayer funds, so they have a much
They have to keep
smaller,
up the
and they have a
infrastructure.
much smaller kitty to work with. And the water, it's so crazy that we have all these water precincts. And the Lee Minnick, who's very helpful, he's now doing both Grassmere Water and Village Water. So he works for both right now. I don't know why they just don't combine it. And then we deal also with Manchester Water. Manchester Water has attended numerous TRC meetings that we hold, so they've provided comments to the developers as to what their needs are. But there's no talk about, because what happens is, if, say for instance, if somebody wanted to do multifamily, they have to have both of those services. So if it's not there, then they just can't do the project.
And I'm wondering, because DPW works in close conjunction with all of those different entities to try to coordinate when they're doing road plan and doing those upgrades. So I wonder if that's a conversation that you guys could facilitate, or, you know, kind of connect. And again, going back to your guys' goal about coordinating with other town committees to help, I wonder if that's a conversation between DPW, sewer, water, and planning board, where that's a place where you guys could identify those properties and try to, you know, put them on their radar for when they're doing projects, expansion and or even upgrades, to include those to lots that we're trying to get developers on.
Okay, so my homework that I'm gonna give myself right now is to call the DPW director and just let him know that we're having these conversations, starting them, and call, was it Collis from planning who said he might be interested?
So,
Yeah, we should have
Kelly
somebody.
could help on this.
Yeah, go ahead, say what you.
So Collis said he was interested, but because he is a selectman's rep to the planning board, he
Yes.
wasn't sure if
That's
he
what
could
I was
then
gonna
be just a regular member.
So
of
I
this
don't know
board.
if there's any formal rule on this, but historically, when we have a member coming to represent another board, that it's an elected member. And because
Yeah.
Collis sits on planning as the select board's representative,
see.
it would be, he's fully capable of doing it, but
And yeah, it's
It may
almost
not be
redundant.
allowed.
I don't know.
And so I
if
asked
there's
Eric
a-
about it, and I
Okay.
haven't heard back. Maybe you could put a bug in their ear.
Sure, yeah.
But if nothing more, it would be great to have that conversation with somebody, planning board, obviously planning director, but planning board, precincts, water precincts, as well as DPW, because, as Kelly said, at some point in time, if we're trying to develop any of these things, all of those departments would have to be involved. You know,
Maybe
so-
we could try and hold a meeting like they used to do, they once a year or twice a year, the selectmen used to do,
An all board
like an all
meeting.
boards meeting, I was trying to think of the name, and then.
You go, Joanne. I tried that years ago and I got,
And
all
not
kinds
to,
of
not to
stuff.
talk about everything and what they're doing, just that subject of
Yeah.
development and the potential of expanding these services.
I think it,
And maybe not have everyone there, but have, sewer commission, people from the water precinct, which would probably be Lee, and maybe someone from Manchester Water and planning and,
that should be,
Town
I think a
administrator.
little bit at a time, probably, Chet, one step at a time.
One
to
step at a
get-
time. But I do think that
Bite off little pieces.
for the agenda next month, it might be which town committee should prioritize as just talking to first. If we're looking at development as our goal, what makes sense to start where, and then just make that the goal for now, and then we'll move on to the next place after that. Like, part of me thinks it might be sewer, but it also could easily be zoning. Like, we just have to decide what makes the most sense. And go for, and really just go from there. I think we do one at a time, just look at one at a time, and then hopefully one of us can attend. I will do my best to make sure that that's me, that can attend those when I can, just to at least explain what we're trying to do and see what their responses are to gauge whether or not there's a willingness to coordinate with us. I think that's a big part of it.
And they may have some information with regard to, we were thinking about that particular lot or that piece of land. This is what it would need, so it might give us some ideas as well.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good start for us. And then so we'll invite Cole, and potentially, I forget the gentleman's name that had on Daniel Plummer, but I think that would
I
be.
can't remember his name either, but I could find out what it is.
So whether it's, this month or maybe that's the following month, but it's always good to have somebody here as a guest to at least just let us know what they're working on, to see if there's anything we can coordinate as well.
Okay.
on here it says that to meet with the owner of Fun City Plaza, but I don't remember when.
Yeah,
that
we've
was
tried to
on.
reach out to, I know you have, I know that I have, trying to reach out, and have you gotten anything back? Okay, we just gotta keep trying, because
Okay,
we
I
don't get
just
a lot
didn't
of.
know what.
It was, that I think was about any vacant lots and what we can do to support them. And then I believe there was also a discussion, am I correct? There was a discussion about just sewer fees or something to do with that?
I think that's been rectified.
Okay,
But it would be nice to talk to, I don't know if we have a language barrier with the actual owner, but I think his son sort of represents him.
Mhm.
He has a younger son. And the problem with that place is there was flooding a few years ago and they didn't close off the water.
Yeah,
And they
I remember
didn't have the
that.
heat on.
Yeah.
So a lot of these units had lots of problems with mold and they just left everything and it was a real mess. That restaurant that was in there,
I remember that.
I think it was a Chinese restaurant, they left their liquor behind and everything. I mean, it was just a huge mess. And it seems like they're not paying enough attention to their property. And I think there are still some vacant units. There's word on the street, I don't know if it's true or not, that Big Lots is going out of business.
No, it's
Definitely.
more than word on the
Sure.
street.
Definitely.
Big signs out in front.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they'll be gone soon,
That's a pretty-
most
that's a-
likely.
Lot of square footage there.
Yeah, there is. And I was thinking of maybe calling back the business who wanted to go on next to the car wash. Maybe they would be interested.
Maybe.
So again, I don't know what type of business it is, and so I just know it's retail.
Yeah, because there's pad sites on that
Yeah.
property
and
as
that-
well.
that's
And I
what
see them.
That's ideal.
Yeah, I see those being advertised. I mean, they have a real estate, seems like there's a realtor sign
When
on the
they
lot.
removed that Pizza Hut, that was their plan, was
Right.
to add
Right.
buildings in that area, but they haven't done anything. They own other plazas in other states.
Do you know, question on that, is plaza like that, are they taxed on the land and buildings as it would be in residential? In other words, if another building goes up on that,
They would
on
be
one,
taxed.
that would increase their tax
Right.
burden,
It
right?
just says value, yep.
The only people who are not taxed are churches and schools and, like, say for instance, the college. There are certain buildings that are taxed, but not others. So they get a tax break. But St. A's is the largest taxpayer in town.
Mhm.
Joanne, did anything ever come from Howard Thirst? He mentioned doing something with the Chamber of Commerce.
No,
Oh.
I haven't seen anything from that.
Okay.
There's a new director at the chamber now. She started a few months ago, or more than a few months ago, maybe 6 to 8 months ago.
Okay.
And there's a lot of new employees there now,
Oh, gotcha.
so maybe that's why.
I think, if I may, a good example of like, that's possible for us is looking at, I was telling you before the meeting, Jaffrey. There's a company called Millipore Sigma, and they are a big medical company, hundreds of employees, 3 shifts. And they don't have like natural gas and things like that, so they actually heat with steam, so they're burning wood. So, I mean, those are
Wow.
alternatives that we could probably look at, I don't know, at least get the wheels turning a little bit. But if they can do it, they're in the middle of nowhere,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
so.
You know, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence on this whole thing, but the big focus, every year, or every 2 years, there's always a big focus on something in the planning world. And for the past few years, it's been housing. So that's where all the resources and all the energy is going towards, with the groups that we associate with, is to increase housing. And they have another program like they did for the I can never remember the name of the place on Bog Road. They, you know how they got the money and
Oh, the Invest
the
New Hampshire?
Invest New Hampshire. They're doing it again this year, but it's more complicated this time. But there's not a whole lot out there. I mean, after COVID, you saw the offices close up. If you look at Manchester, many of the big developers who own office buildings are converting them into apartment buildings or condominiums. I think some people say there's more people going back to the offices, but I don't see that myself. I don't know. So it's hard to really predict what's going to happen in the next couple of years, because there won't be any decent office space available if they've converted everything into housing, and that was an expensive endeavor. And if they all of a sudden say, oh, we need more office space now, or so manufacturing seems to be the key, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful building, I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere.
I wonder if they have really low taxes and that's why they went there.
Not sure, it'd be interesting to look.
Yeah, check out their tax rate.
You're gonna say something?
Well, it seems that the trend is to, excuse me. The trend is to, people are going back to office, but I think it's gonna remain as hybrid, more
Yeah,
hybrid as
yeah.
it is. But, yeah, you can see a lot of, even the Brady Sullivan Tower, the 1000 Elm Street, that's all
Yeah,
apartments now.
it's all apartments.
Yeah, there is that push, and that's why the ADU thing, obviously, is a big push. Everybody
Right.
wants it, and it's across the country. I mean, you can
Right.
read any article about any town or any city, that's what they're dealing with. Is
Yeah, it's
housing.
not
Well,
just-
affordable housing. So,
Right,
you need inventory, that's what
and
the
there's so
issue is.
few people building affordable housing.
Right.
And in this case, with this, how they're calling it the housing champions, it's certain towns have, if you had to meet a criteria in order to apply, and then they approve you as the housing champion. So if a multifamily project comes into your town, they get some money and then the town gets money. So it's an incentive to become this housing champion but then in the end, you wind up with many multifamily projects.
Yeah, which is absolutely necessary for New Hampshire. I think that's fine, and that's sort of out of our control. What's in our control is looking at, I think, the development piece. We have to keep our finger on the pulse of that stuff for sure. But the development piece, I think, is what we take a look at within town and what's viable for us.
And there's land behind, you know, if you drive down Depot Street,
Yep.
it's like pretty wide open there, although the river is close by, so you can't build, you know, too close to it, but there, that's all, I believe, industrial, but it's not really been developed very much.
Isn't that New Hampshire, the conduit company, what's at the end of Depot Street?
I don't mean at the very end, but just like around there, there's been, the company that's on the left also expanded a few years ago on the right.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, the people who are locked in on Daniel Plummer may want to, you know, that would be their way of expanding, is to go to an area where there's actually room to expand.
So we'll reach out to him and look at 2 months down the road. So the next agenda, we'll hopefully have Cole, and we'll talk about the priority for the first other board council committee that we would like to reach out to talk about some of our development goals. Is there anything else top of the list that we want to discuss? Okay, I think those are pretty broad discussions anyway. So if we are looking good, is anything else at all? Okay, I'll take a motion. Motion to adjourn by Chris. Second by Oscar. All in favor? Say aye. Okay. All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.